We're going to talk about securing our natural rights. And just a little review, social contract. John Locke states that the purpose of government is to secure our natural rights. He says that government gets its right to govern from the consent of the people. And he says since power comes from the people also have the right to take it away if the government is not serving the purpose for which it was established. So if you look under each three of these statements, they go and they make up the Declaration of Independence. So Thomas Jefferson takes this excerpt from the John Locke and directly puts it into the Declaration. He says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, and deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. So in his case, the Declaration of Independence is a justification for the Revolutionary War, and obviously this is an extreme case where you have a king who was also called a despot. We would call him a tyrant. You could call him a dictator, whatever you would like to call him. So in extreme cases, in the case during the Revolutionary War, they were justifying a revolution. The government should have limited powers to protect individual rights, which reduces the need for revolution. So here in the United States, we have a government that has limited powers, unlike King George III, who had unlimited powers. So we really don't need a revolution. What we have here in the United States is the ability to have elections. And if we don't like what our government is doing, that's exactly what we do. We alter it or we abolish it by putting, instead of a Republican in party or in power, we put a Democrat in power. This idea of consent, the Founding Fathers and the immigrants who moved to the United States give what's called explicit consent. It is stated clearly and in detail. There is no room for confusion or doubt. So the signers of the Declaration of Independence said, "And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honors." So they are explicitly consenting to what they are doing. The Founding Fathers, sometimes referred to as the framers because they framed the document, created it, and they agreed to the contract that established. So we're still talking about this social contract. So they gave explicit consent to the contract by signing the Constitution. When immigrants come to the United States and seek citizenship, they have to actually give an oath or take an oath. And it says, "I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic." And it goes on from there. But they are giving their explicit consent. They are saying, we are going to live here, and we are signing a document, we are giving an oath. And so all of these people did that. They gave explicit consent. As native-borns or natural-born Americans, we give what's called implicit consent. By staying in the United States and not seeking citizenship in another country, we imply, we haven't signed anything, we haven't given some oath in front of a judge where we've held up our right hand, but by staying in the United States, we give this implicit consent. And we reaffirm this every time we take the pledge, anytime we vote, or engage in any sort of other civic activity. Talking about constitutional governments, two types. You have limited government, which a limited government has established and respected restraints on their power. There are laws. We have free elections. And then you have unlimited governments. Those who govern are free to use their powers as they choose. They are unrestrained by the laws or elections. They don't have to follow the rules that they established. And a term that I need for you to get into your notes is called rule of law. And the rule of law is extremely important here in the United States, and it goes along with this idea of limited government. And what it says is that we have written out laws. We know what the punishments are. There's nothing vague about it. You know what the consequences are going to be when you break the law. And these apply to everyone, including our elected officials. So this idea of rule of law is that we have established laws. We have a constitution. and everyone is subject to it, and no one is above it. So we don't have a king who can do what they want and are not restrained by the laws. They are subject to those laws. Some terms that go along with unlimited government, and King George III, make sure you know who that is, was the king during the Revolutionary War. And some terms that they used to describe him: tyrant, and tyranny is cruel and oppressive government or rule. Autocracy, which is government by a single person having unlimited power. And then King George III was also sometimes referred to as a despot, which is once again a tyrant or a dictator. He was the king. Oligarchy, this is where you have a government by a small group, once again having unlimited power. And dictatorship is rule, control, or leadership by one person who has total power. And then this idea of totalitarianism, the political concept, a citizen should be totally subject to an absolute state authority. So once again, King George III during the Revolutionary War would have fit many of these definitions. Hitler obviously was a tyrant. He was an autocrat, dictator, totalitarian. All of those terms describe him. Constitutional government. When the founding fathers or the framers were wanting to create this new constitution, they based their ideas on the readings from both history and the natural rights philosopher, obviously John Locke included. And the founders believed that the new government should be a limited or a constitutional government. And in a constitutional government, the powers of the person or group controlling the government are limited by a set of laws and customs called a constitution. And a constitution is a set of customs, traditions, rules, and laws that set forth the basic way a government is organized and operated. Most constitutions are in writing. Some are partly written, and some are partly unwritten, and then you have others that are not written at all. Good and bad governments both have constitutions. Just because a government has a constitution does not make it a limited government. One of the examples here is the former Soviet Union, which was a communist country, had one of the longest and most elaborate constitutions, but their citizens had very few rights.